Hello, welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You're listening to newsstreamingnetwork.com. We are home of the Going Solo and the Going Bold, and today we've got a wonderful show called Divorce Coalition Live Show. And I am so very pleased to be your host today. I am Cece Shatz. I am the doyenne of relationship building. I am a divorce dating and a life coach. I'm the founder and owner of New Streaming Network. Let's talk a little bit about this show today. The show is designed for divorce professionals to enhance the divorce process to prevent re-traumatization for domestic abuse survivors. We're going to switch gears here a little bit because normally our wonderful guest here today, which is Jill Kaufman, Jill Barnett Kaufman. She is an MSW, an LCSW, a divorce coach, therapist, and a co-parenting expert. She's normally our wonderful host here on Divorce Coalition Live show, but today we're going to switch gears. She's going to be our guest, and I am so thrilled to have you, Jill. Thank you for coming here today.
Oh, thank you, Cece. I'm so glad to be able to do this.
It is so great. So tell us a little bit, not only of yourself, how you got started doing what you do, because you help a lot of individuals through divorce, through some of probably the worst times in their life. You really do help them a great deal. But also share with us a little bit about the Divorce Coalition, because the Divorce Coalition, a lot of individuals don't realize exactly what it is. It's kind of new, where it's a little bit new out there. And it's a wonderful organization, a nonprofit organization. So share a little bit about yourself and then tell us a little bit about the Divorce Coalition.
Sure. So as you said, I'm a divorce coach therapist. I'm actually a certified mediator, divorce mediator, and I'm a parent educator. And so I've been working with people going through divorce for many, many years in all different kinds of capacities. And I now have a divorce coaching practice where I help people through all the aspects of divorce, starting from when they are just starting and totally overwhelmed to when they sign their agreement. And really, I try to make it less difficult because I went through my own divorce in 2012 and it was high conflict and I made all the mistakes. So I really am out there trying to help people not make those mistakes that I made. I am on one of the committees for the Divorce Coalition, which is an amazing organization dedicated to increasing education and awareness of divorce professionals about domestic violence. And we want change to create a more supportive and less traumatic divorce experience. So we have top podcast hosts and divorce professionals in the Divorce Coalition, and we've all united to create systematic change in the divorce process for domestic abuse victims. And this is an interesting tidbit of information. 23.5% of divorces cite domestic violence as the cause. So we have expert guests, advice, and really interesting conversations. So that's basically what the Divorce Coalition Live show is for the Divorce Coalition. And I'm very excited to be
wonderful. Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. I think it really does help those unite against abuse and also create awareness that there's various different types of abuse, and then also helps the professionals be able to understand and really get, I think, down deep with the individuals that are the survivors. So it's very important. I think this is a wonderful cause. I know New Streaming Network, we support it 100%. So we're part of the leadership team as you, and we're just so really thrilled to be able to share it with those professionals out there. So let's talk a little bit about our topic today, because our topic is going to be about working with domestic abuse clients in a traumatic informed way. So Jill, tell us a little bit about that. Let's kick that off.
Absolutely. So as a therapist, we work with a lot of people who have experienced trauma, and a lot would say that divorce is a traumatic experience. So most people who are going through divorce have some kind of trauma that they're dealing with, but not all people who've experienced trauma have like post-traumatic stress disorder or some diagnosable condition like depression or anxiety. So you can't assume that everybody you're working with is going to be significantly impaired by their experience. However, a lot of people do have PTSD who have experienced domestic violence. And so we really need to know as divorce professionals what that means, what's going on for our clients. And so I want to go into a little bit of what happens to the brain when there's trauma experience. So the brain is broken up into parts, and the base of the brain is I call it the reptilian brain, but there's one piece of it called the amygdala. And that is a part of the brain that is triggered when you have some kind of experience that reminds you of the trauma. So if it is like a voice that's similar, or a smell that reminds you of, it could be anything that reminds you of the original trauma, the person especially. And when you're divorcing somebody who has traumatized you, who has, you know, where you've experienced domestic violence, you have to deal with them throughout the divorce. So that is going to be triggering for a lot of people who are going through divorce. So a lot of times they will want to go to court so they don't have to deal with them directly. There are other ways that people can deal with their abusers, that where they don't have to see them face to face, even, if, and they don't have to go to court. So we're going to talk about that. But basically, when your amygdala is triggered, you are either going to fight or run away or freeze. So those are the three responses that the person is going to experience. You can't think through and answer questions rationally when you're in that state. And so you are, as a divorce professional, I'm going to give some tools so that they can help their clients calm down in the moment if they get triggered. But in general, you want to have them have some kind of support outside of the, attorney or mediator or, a financial professional. They're going to need some professional help if they are getting triggered by their soon-to-be ex. So, and I'm going to go into that.
Wow.
Another thing I wanted to talk about is that there are behaviors that they may exhibit that are not what you would typically see. Like there could be angry outbursts. They could not trust you. They could share what happened to them, like some very serious experience, like it's not really emotional, so there could be a disassociation from what they're saying. And that's normal. That's a part of a traumatic response. There's also flashbacks. They experience incredible shame when they're going through this, that they've been victimized. So they feel, that they have to hide it potentially. They may not remember parts of the story that they're telling you because of the way the brain reacts. And, there's other behaviors like substance abuse or high risk behaviors. So there's lots of behaviors that we need to be aware of as divorce professionals that, it doesn't indicate that these people aren't potentially high functioning. It just means that they're being triggered at the moment.
Right. Right.
So yeah, so it's complicated, and I think it's really good for people to understand this.
Yeah, I think this is important because, you get, like, for instance, you get, an attorney that's just out of law school, and they're really not taught this. They're not taught, what their client's behavior is going to be and what to look for. And I think this is very interesting for those that have not experienced anything like this. So when they have, a client that comes in and then they listen to a show like this and they hear some of this, they can then, say, oh yeah, I remember what Joe was saying, and this is what's happening with my client, and that she needs some professional help, and they can help her walk her through some of that stuff, not only handling what they do, but they can also encourage the individual to seek whatever help that they need. So this is truly important. I mean, those out there that are professionals, this show is very important because it really will highlight some experiences that you may experience that, you didn't think about that would happen to individuals and to your clients. Yeah.
Exactly. And it may take you by surprise. How you're having a regular conversation and something happens and they change, how they're behaving. And
Mhm.
and it's confusing if you don't understand that this is normal reactions to post-traumatic stress disorder. So getting educated about this is really important.
Yeah, it truly is. Well, I know that we have some questions we're going to kind of tackle because in our show notes, if you guys look at our show notes, these are some of the things that you're going to learn today on the show. So, how does trauma impact domestic abuse survivors?
Yeah. So like I was saying, their brains are going to react differently based on if they're triggered or and then also, the typical domestic abuse survivor will have shame. So shame is something that will be pervasive. That it will be something that affects all of their how they're functioning, and so they may not be able to trust a professional so easily, and you may have to do more to earn somebody's trust, whereas somebody who's coming in who doesn't have this experience, they're immediately going to trust their attorney, and they're going to listen to what the attorney says. With someone with PTSD and a domestic abuse survivor, they may need a lot more time with you to really develop that trust. When they really need to be able to trust you. So be patient with them and really try to be understanding that um, they don't really trust people because of their experiences. Another behavior which is possible, and every person has a different way that they respond to trauma, but another thing is that they might listen to you too much. They might just not listen to themselves and not be able to speak up for themselves because they don't trust themselves. Their self-esteem has been severely impacted by the experience. So they will just, whatever you say, they will do. And that is not good because that's not what you want. You want a partner where they can tell you honestly what their priorities are or what they, you know, feel about a certain thing. That you don't want them to just listen to their attorney without any kind of input. So that there's a lot of things you can do to help them with that, but basically get them working with a therapist to work on their self-esteem is really, really important. There's just so many different, um, reactions. And one of them is that they feel like they're permanently damaged. They're damaged goods. That's what a lot of domestic abuse survivors think into themselves, that they're not, they're broken, they're damaged goods, and they really don't trust themselves. And so they will say things to you, and the more that you can um, counteract that, the more you're going to build trust and the more you're going to build them up, to feel good about speaking to you and sharing things with you. So, if they say something like, I never make good decisions. I'm always making mistakes and I don't know what I'm doing. You can reassure them by saying, you know, I know that you've been through a lot, but you're a strong person and you're still here. I mean, when I work with clients, I really work on building them up and recognizing even, any strengths that you can get from them. And the fact that they have gotten through this experience and domestic abuse and are talking to an attorney or a financial professional is an example of strength. So you want to focus on that and let them know that, you are strong. I can see how strong you are. And, while you're not the therapist and it's not your responsibility to help them, with this in a, overall way, just that one reassuring statement will help them feel more confident in themselves.
Right. And I think too, when you hear something like that, when you when you realize that they've experienced, abuse and they're really struggling, that is a great time for, maybe the divorce professional to suggest a therapist, or, give them some ideas, like maybe you need a coach, maybe you need a therapist. And, this, I highly recommend this because it will help you, not to make you feel like you're damaged goods, but to make the individual realize that they need a team. They need someone to help them, walk them a little bit more through this. And so that leads us to our second question. Why is it important for divorce professionals to understand how trauma impacts domestic abuse survivors? I mean, that is a perfect example, that helps them to understand that, maybe they need more than just a divorce professional or a financial professional to help them through this divorce. Maybe they actually need someone that's going to help them through some of the abuse situations that they've experienced. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do divorce professionals need to know this is because we can make the experience for them better, or we can make it worse, not even
Mhm.
knowing that we're making it worse. For example, domestic abuse survivors sometimes really look at nonverbal cues. So, like, they're very sensitive to the way that we're talking to them. If we're making eye contact with them, if we're distracted and doing something else while they're talking, they may feel like they're not important to us, and that we're not really paying attention to them. So there's, like, little things like that that we have to be aware of, that maybe somebody else wouldn't be sensitive to. Maybe I'm writing notes while the person's talking and I'm really paying attention. Explain that to them. Say, you know what, I'm listening to everything you're saying, but I have to write notes down. It helps me remember things. So
Right.
little things like that are really helpful. The other thing that we need to remember is not to push survivors too hard, because we don't want to make them do something that they don't want to do, which is um, reminiscent of their relationship with their abuser.
Right.
So, we will become in that position and re-traumatize them if we push them too hard to agree to something or to do something in the divorce process.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the other thing that we need to be aware of is our own background. So if we have any history with trauma, we can be vicariously traumatized through our work with trauma victims. And so even if we don't have experience with trauma, sometimes we're told things, or we hear things, or we see things that are, traumatizing. And so we have to be aware of our own reaction when we're working with domestic violence survivors.
Yeah, that's a great point, because a lot of individuals that do this type of work are doing it because they've themselves have experienced and want to make a difference, want to make a change in the world. So yeah, absolutely. We're going to have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a lot more. So you guys stick around. But before we do, I'd like to share Jill's information. Those of you, especially if you're out there listening, you are a survivor, you're going through some of these things, Jill could certainly help you. So just contact Jill. And I want to make sure that I get her information here for you. I don't think oh yeah, here it is. I do apologize.
Nope.
You can email her at info@divorcecoachjill.com. That's info@divorcecoachjill.com. And then again, her website is divorcecoachjill.com. That's DIVORCE coach, COACH, and then Jill, JILL.com. So please go ahead and contact her. If you have any questions at all, especially about today's show or anything that you're feeling, certainly reach out to her. She most certainly can help you. And she, again, is on the Divorce Coalition team. So please go ahead and contact the Divorce Coalition if you're interested. It's divorcecoalition.com. And, definitely it's a nonprofit. If you're a professional out there and you haven't joined this particular association, I urge you to please do it and support it. It's nonprofit. Your donations are very important to us to be able to continue doing this wonderful work. And there's a lot to it. So please check out the website, divorcecoalition.com. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. So stick around, everyone.
Domestic abuse survivors experience a lack of trust in the divorce and legal systems in place to protect them. Research shows that many report re-traumatization in court and reported that legal professionals verbally threatened them, mocked them, did not give them a chance to speak in court, exaggerated the survivor's faults in court, and provoked them to elicit emotional reactions. In other cases, divorce professionals may be the first point of contact for survivors with the ability to help if they recognize the signs. The Divorce Coalition is a nonprofit organization created to change this experience for abuse victims and survivors through education and awareness of divorce professionals. For more information, go to www.divorcecoalition.com and please support us by making a tax-deductible donation at www.divorcecoalition.com/donate-now. And now back to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Bold and Going Solo. This is the Divorce Coalition live show. And I have my wonderful guest here with me today, which is normally our host. So Jill Barnett Kaufman, she's an MSW at LCSW, divorce coach, therapist, and co-parenting expert. I mean, you wear many hats, lady. And so we are just so proud to have you on here today. We're talking about working with domestic abuse clients in a trauma-informed way, which is so very, very important. And we're representing the Divorce Coalition, divorcecoalition.com. So those of you that don't know about the divorcecoalition.com, check it out. And we hope that you will join it and support us in trying to, just get this abuse stuff out of, we just don't want to see this anymore. We really want to try to help those survivors, and we want to do it the best way we can, especially as professionals want to make sure that we can help those. So we're talking about, before we talked about how does trauma impact divorce abuse survivors, we also talked about why is it important for divorce professionals to understand how trauma impacts domestic abuse survivors. If you missed the first half, please run back and watch it. Now we're going to talk about how does the power differential between domestic abuse survivors and their perpetrators impact divorce. So Jill, you want to take it over and answer those questions for us?
Absolutely. So when someone experiences domestic violence, there's a power differential that allows one partner to have control over another partner. And in the system where you're using the courts to decide your divorce, the default is to view both parties as equal. So that's not going to be helpful to someone who has been unequal for an extended period of time. And it's going to be challenging to present the case. Even, there are certain situations where some of the victims are not fully aware of their victimhood. So one of my clients, many of my clients, but I'm just thinking about one of my clients, was so used to being under the control of her perpetrator that she questioned everything. And when he said something, she would take it as, oh, I have to do this, or I have to listen to him. Oh, I have to, what am I going to do? Because he's threatening this. And, you have to explain to the person that they don't have control over you anymore. You actually have as much or more power as you go through the court system. So like one thing is you have to change their perspective and have them understand that they have more power than they have had in the past. And the other is you have to convince the, judge or whoever it is that's deciding, the arbitrator or whoever's deciding the case, that, this isn't, you don't look at each of these people as equal tellers of the truth. This is someone who has been abusive in the past and probably will be having, telling lies or telling stories in a different view. And so this is a difficulty when you're dealing with survivors. And I just wanted to mention, you had brought up, Cece, that maybe they should get a divorce coach or therapist. And I think a lot of people may not understand the difference and why you would refer to one versus another. And
Right.
there's a big difference between therapy and coaching. And a lot of times survivors need both. So therapy is basically when you have a traumatic experience, or you have childhood experience, or you have something that has or you could have, just something with your makeup genetically that you're predispositioned to depression or anxiety. So there's diagnoses that a therapist is going to use to treat somebody. And when you treat somebody, you're looking into their past, you're
Hmm.
helping them come up with solutions of how to increase their how they function. So if depression is one of their diagnoses, you really want to find out what is making them depressed. What are the things that have contributed to it? If it's the trauma, you want to help them, process the trauma. You really want to allow them a safe space to talk about it, to talk about any of their past experiences, and help them make sense of it. I mean, there's so many tools that therapists use to help people get through their trauma. There's
Right.
eye movement desensitization response, EMDR. There's cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a ton of tools that therapists have that they can help their clients with for these kinds of issues. Coaching is totally different. It's much more present and future oriented. It's goal oriented. They want to help clients get through like the divorce process, or they want to help them get through their day-to-day functioning, so or they can help clients build their self-esteem, but in a different way than a therapist would do it. So having the two for someone like this is really a powerful way for them to have a team around them, and help them get to a more functional place where they can be confident, have high self-esteem, and really know themselves. And the other thing I wanted to say about the brain, which I forgot to mention, is that the prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that develops late. And that's the thinking part of the brain. And that has to be functioning in order for somebody to think through how they feel about something and make decisions. So when an attorney is asking you questions and you're triggered, you're not using your prefrontal cortex. You can't think through. So you may just say, whatever you want to do is fine with me. So you really want to get them to a place where they're able to think through their answers. And a therapist and a coach can really help with that in very different ways.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point. Now, I was thinking too, as you were talking, let's see, we have a comment. Let's see what it is. What is this? Could you please ask a question? Do you guys know if it's possible to find an attorney that's willing to represent someone pro bono? If so, how would you go about finding them?
That's a good question.
Hmm.
There are pro bono attorneys available, and it's usually through nonprofit organizations, local nonprofit organizations. There are also companies that provide services for lower fees. Like I know Hello Divorce is one that I refer people to, and they don't work with everybody in every state, but they have like 1 hour consultations for much lower than you would get for a regular attorney. So there's definitely resources out there for people.
Right. She was saying she definitely agrees with you. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for commenting. We do appreciate that. I wanted to ask you too, because when we're talking about power, right? So often as we're going through the divorce, that there's still issues. There's the domestic violence doesn't necessarily end just because you filed for divorce and you might be living separately, right? So you still have issues that might come up. So it's very important for the divorce professionals to know what's happening. And a lot of times, especially if you're looking at financial abuse, you're looking at a lot of hidden funds, hidden things like that. And so, what would you say with regards to that? Because I know as you're going through, you're still going to be feeling things. You're still going to be experiencing things.
Absolutely. And coercive control is one of the things that they can do post separation. So an abuser can also do things with the court system, or, with your children, or, where they have some control over you. I mean, the best thing you can do is get help from a divorce coach and a therapist, so that you know how to respond, so that the person knows how to respond to the coercive control. But what you said about hidden assets, there are so many things that people can do to find hidden assets. There are forensic accountants, there are investigators, but there's definitely things that can be done to find the any kind of financial assets or income that's been hidden. And a divorce coach is the person to help you kind of navigate all of that stuff.
Right. And
Or a
see, it's so
financial-
important for the
yeah.
professional to know that you're experiencing this, because a lot of times those that are abused, they don't want to share. They try to cover it up. They want to hide it. They've been taught for years to hide this type of behavior. And so they don't always want to share it. So it's very, very important for the professionals to know what's going on, so that they can help, direct them into the right path that they need to go, and to make sure that they are protected, which is an awesome thing for us to be able to make that awareness for professionals out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
So we still have a couple more questions. What can divorce professionals do to help domestic abuse survivors? I guess we're talking about that right now. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things they can do. So, when you are allowing your client to vent, and you're not a therapist or divorce coach, if it's an attorney, I mean, doing it for a little while is okay, right? You want to make sure that they understand that you're listening to them, but to do it for extended periods of time, for hours, is not doing the best thing for your client, because you're not the mental health professional, right? You're not the divorce coach. So you want to really encourage them to speak to the right professional for that. And you want to say, I empathize with you, but I definitely want you to talk. I'm not, I wish I could help you with this more. I'm not the person who can help you. Your therapist is, or your divorce coach is. But you do want to listen, right? So you don't want to just cut them off and say, talk to your therapist about that. You want to listen for a certain amount of time, and you want to have eye contact with them and validate them. So you want to say, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I believe you. This is not your fault. You're not alone. Those are validating statements that are really helpful to them, to know that you've heard them, and that you see them, and you understand them. And it doesn't have to take a long time. You can listen to them for 5 to 10 minutes tops, and then give them some validating statements. And then, ask them, is there anything I can do to help? Um, and that's when you say, like, I'm not a divorce professional, I mean, a mental health professional. I want you to talk to your therapist about this. I think they can really help you. Or I think you really should get a therapist, because that's exactly what they're helping you with. So, and then the other piece of it is, like, to care for yourself. So, because this is really tough work, we really need to take care of ourselves, because sometimes you have a client that just affects you, and it, long after you're working with the client, you're still thinking about the client. So you really do need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, because you do, as professionals, you do get vested in your clients. You do care. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I totally understand that. So our last question is, how do we help domestic abuse survivors with their divorce in a trauma-informed way? And I think we've been covering that all the way through. I think it's a terrific, this is really terrific. The thing is, it's really creating awareness, right? Because so often abuse victims, they try to hide. Again, I've said that before. They try to hide what they're going through, and you don't know as professional when they're hiding something. But when you start realizing it, that's when you can, certainly start helping, opening the door for them and helping them, by giving suggested advice, and where to go to get the help that they need, which is so valuable. But also, I've heard many, many stories with regards to, abuse just with paperwork for, when you're going through the divorce, bombarding with paperwork, subpoenas, and, all kinds of things like that. So, and a divorce attorney, when they start getting things like that, to become aware that, okay, this is a form of abuse, what they're going through. So what would you say on that? A comment on that?
Well, so as much as you can keep it out of court is
Mhm.
better. And I know that a lot of times you can't with
Mhm.
these types of situations, but sometimes, and I do this with my clients. I did it in my divorce. Clients will say that I would rather accept this deal, even though I know I can get more, because if I if I push more, I'm going to end up in court and it's not worth it to me emotionally.
Mhm.
So, and you have to accept that. You don't take that initially if the person's not thinking through it and really sure of doing that. But if that survivor has said, you know what, I know my soon to be ex, and I know that he or she won't agree to anything close to this, and I'm okay with this much, or this parenting situation, or whatever it is. I really need to get this done without going to court. Then you've got to accept that and
Mhm.
say that, you know what, this person knows what they need better than I do, and I have to accept that's all that they're going to agree to, and not push them to fight for things,
Mhm.
even though they may deserve it, as long as they're really sure about that decision. So I think that that's really important for an attorney to know. I also think, like, when you have mediation, you can have the people in separate rooms from the beginning. You don't
Mhm.
have to have them see each other. And if this is traumatizing to someone to be in the same room, don't push them to be in the same room. Or if you do mediation or arbitration or whatever it is,
Mhm.
outside of court, there are ways that you can get them to negotiate without being face to face, and be really aware of whether that's okay or not for your client.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I know that, like, when you hear these stories, where they are in 3 years and 5 years going through divorce, and that those are generally probably abusive type of environment that's going on. And so, yeah, and it's nice that we have a show like this, that we can try to help the professionals go through and create that awareness. So when they start seeing this bombarding of paperwork, and they start seeing where their clients are wanting them to subpoena something, or have them served on Christmas Day, that they will say, hey, wait a minute, this is not kosher, let's not do this, that kind of thing. So it's good for us to start creating awareness, so that attorneys and those will see that, and try to take control, so that the abusive person is not, the survivor is not constantly being bombarded. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that most of the people listening to this are not
Mhm.
going to be doing that. They'll
Yeah.
advise their
Mhm.
clients appropriately, but
Mhm.
you may be dealing with an attorney who's like that, and you need to get support from other people to help you. You need a team of people when you're dealing with someone like that, a high
Right.
conflict abuser who's divorcing your client. It's really tough.
Yeah, and I really do think that our attorneys and all of our professionals are now stepping back and saying, "Wait a minute, we're not gonna do that to the potential divorced person. You're not going to be doing that, anymore." So I think we're creating the awareness of abuse. And before, years ago, we didn't have that, and so we have it now, which is really great. And the more awareness we can create, the more that we can help prevent some of this. So I think this is great. Professionals out there are wonderful, and I know they do really truly want to help those that are suffering from domestic abuse. And so, yeah, this is a wonderful show. And thank you so much, Jill, for doing it today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Cece. It was my pleasure.
Yeah. Any last words you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I just want to say that, this is a really difficult situation that we are all dealing with, domestic abuse. And, the more awareness and the more help you can get for yourself and your client, the better we're all going to be. And I'm so happy to be a part of doing this. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Again, you guys can reach Jill at info at divorcecoachjill.com. Then her website is divorcecoachjill.com. So please go ahead and reach out to her if you have any questions at all. I'm sure she'd love to be able to get your emails. And then also, we want you to definitely check out divorcecoalition.com. And that is why we do the show here today, divorcecoalition.com. They are a nonprofit and really helping the professionals become more aware of abuse. And so we definitely want to reach out and have you guys check out that website and be a part of it, help create awareness. So I want to thank our one here for commenting. Thank you so much. We want to appreciate you for commenting and being with us for the whole show. It just touches our heart when we do have those that do want to comment. So thank you. And she did go on to say there are many programs to help domestic abuse survivors. Unfortunately, I think I don't have many. Okay, so please know them. All right, so there are many out there. So yeah, so reach out. If you want to reach out to Jill, she can share with you any programs or whatever that she can help you with. I'm sure she'd be happy to. And then contact
And
Divorce Coalition. There's
I
tons of
think on the page there are
yeah.
resources on there. So yeah.
Yeah, so definitely. So we've got the resources for you. So we're trying to make it available for those that are struggling, and then any professionals that want to have more awareness and want to be a part of this. We open arms. We'd love to be able to have you join us. So that'd be wonderful. So again, it's divorcecoalition.com. You guys are listening to Divorce Coalition Live, and we are just so pleased to have you all with us today. We talked about a very difficult subject, working with domestic abuse clients and in a trauma-informed way. And it's very important for those professionals that are experiencing their clients going through trauma to try to help them move through that in a very efficient, in a very efficient way. And so, of course, we had our wonderful guest on here, which is she's normally our host, so it's great to have her here, Jill Barnett Kaufman. And she is a divorce coach, a therapist, and she wears many hats. So, of course, give her an email at info@divorcecoachjill.com. So we're going to sign off today. We want to thank you guys so much for joining us. We do appreciate you, and we hope that you'll join us again. I'm Cece Shatz, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.